Grief is such an overpowering emotion, especially after losing someone so close to you. It can take months, years, even decades to get back to normal, if that's even possible after experiencing a significant loss. This podcast was created to help you move through and release the emotions, allowing you to heal the hurt and begin living again. Listen in as I chat with medical professionals, grief workers, and people who have first-hand experience in losing a loved one, what their experience has been, and what they did to help heal themselves and those around them. Life isn't always sunshine and rainbows, but I believe there is always a silver lining if you're willing to look. Welcome to the Release Podcast. Welcome to another episode of Release Grief Podcast. Today I am here with Dana Ritchie. Gosh, I keep wanting to say Dana, but it's Dana Ritchie. And she wrote a book several years ago, and I'm going to look at my notes here. It is Reprogramming Subconscious Reprogramming, which on the surface doesn't really sound like it taps into grief. But when you think about grief is a lot about mindset and confidence and all of those things, which the mind plays a huge part in how you heal and how you interpret and how you move through your grief process. So I am so excited to have Dana on here and chatting about this and talking about she does have stories of loss too, so it's not just about her book and promoting that either, but I'm excited. So welcome, Dana. Thank you so much for being on
Thank you,
here.
Faith.
Thank
you.
And I know you mentioned in the notes about your husband. Can you talk a little bit about him?
Sure. I also wanted to mention that the book is actually called Well-Managed Mind, and that's the same as the technique. So, and it is about subconscious reprogramming. And as to my husband, yes, my husband passed away 9 years ago, actually. Now time flies.
Yeah.
And I was left with a teenager boy. And my parents, who were in 80s at that time, and it was a very tough time. My mom got sick right after the celebration of life, and then I had to take care of her for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
So I was slightly resentful afterwards. And that is where subconscious reprogramming comes in, because you can rewire your brain, but mentioning subconscious reprogramming, when my husband got sick, it was very quick. He had a very rare kind of cancer, and he had a big surgery, and he was gone in a year. And we were very grateful to have that extra year with him, because my son was just 12 when he got sick. So that was very hard time. And I thought, you know what? I have my subconscious reprogramming technique, well-managed mind, and I'll be fine. But oh boy, how little did I know about grief. Holy shit.
Oh, you're welcome. Go ahead, let it out.
Like, oh my God. So I think that it was me, my personality, thinking I have to take care of my kid. The most important thing is to bring him up so he's okay. And in a process, I think I just started being harder and harder on myself, because I would think, oh, you should have done more today. You could have done more. And having your own business and like building it, I mean, we all know that, all the entrepreneurs, it's sometimes difficult. Sometimes you have to rest. Sometimes you have to go with the flow. If it's not working today, like, leave it till tomorrow. And I just couldn't do it, because I kept constantly like criticizing myself. And one day my girlfriend said to me, why are you so hard on yourself? And I'm like, because I don't do anything during the day. And she said, write it down. And I'm like, what am I going to write down? There is nothing to write down. I had the list I was supposed to do. This. I have barely done anything. And interestingly enough, when I did write the list, I realized that I have done a lot of things, but
Yep.
I never saw it. It was
Right.
just weird. Yeah, it was a very weird realization. And so during the process, I ran myself down. And I think all women have that kind of feeling. If I don't stop now, I'm going to get sick,
Right.
right? Because we are slightly more, well, not slightly, we are more emotional than men. We are wired
Uh,
differently.
correct.
So somehow we have that like feeling, okay, if I don't change something, I'm going to be screwed. And so I kept like, that kept coming up for me. And I said, okay, but how can I change it? I can't slow down. I have to do more.
Right.
So it was really difficult. And I remember a year after his passing, he passed in February. So it was like year and a half, I guess. And then I kept going and it was November. His birthday was November 27th. And from like people who know about subconscious reprogramming and brain rewiring or NLP, you know that these time frames are in our brain as patterns. So they like reoccur every year at the same time because the brain says, oh, last year you were very sad, or last year you were sick, or last year you celebrated birthday. So it could be like a good pattern or a bad pattern. And so around his birthday and the sadness, like suddenly it just took me down. And I watched television, the romance movies, seriously, I think for like 4 weeks. And I didn't remember what I watched, but it was some sort, I felt like I'm in trance. I,
Right.
I just suddenly had to shut down and switch off everything. And then from there, I was much nicer to myself, but it did take me over a year.
Oh, I bet. I bet. So how long had he been sick?
um, so he got sick in October 2014, around my son's birthday. I was actually with my girlfriends in Palm Springs, and he called me and he says, well, I have a couple guys over, the kids are here, and I just ate and it feels like I just like it's not like coming down from my stomach. And so he says, I'm gonna sleep in my recliner. And so by the time I got home, he was quite sick. We went to the emergency and they sent him home with indigestion. And then we were back the next day. And then they did the CT and everything because he couldn't keep anything down. And then they found out that there was a tumor. I don't know if you know what bile duct is, but it's basically there are tubes that send bile from like liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. And
Okay.
so these things break down everything that comes from the stomach to duodenum, which is small intestine. So it was just sitting right where the tubes were coming in. So very unusual cancer. There was no research on it. We were like going through all continents where we had friends like Europe, United States, Canada, and it was well, yeah, it was not very good. But then there was a surgeon in BC here. There were two guys that performed the operation, and that was like 8 hour surgery.
Wow.
And so it went relatively well, but unfortunately, when they took part of the pancreas, it was already
Mm,
spread. So, and then also people who deal with people who were ill or with cancer that is not the typical one, they don't know how to mix the chemotherapy. I think that's been the difficult part
sure.
for a lot of people because the liver or the large intestine, they know how it travels, right? How the cells usually get infected or turn not infected, but when it's a rare or new kind, like they don't really know how to mix. So they were mixing like the liver cancer and then the large intestine. So they were kind of like trying stuff. So he did it for about 6 months and then he stopped. And yeah, so by he celebrated his 50th birthday November 27th. And when he got dressed, he said to me, I'm gonna cry. He says, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. And
Oh,
so we went to the pub and there were like about 50 people and it was really nice. And a week later, he had a pain and we went to the doctor and he said, there's nothing else we can do. And he was gone February 5th.
oh wow.
So then it was very quick. So
Yeah.
recovering from the huge surgery took a while and then he had, 6 months that were pretty good. And then, yeah, heartbreaking.
It's very heartbreaking. How long had you guys been married?
About 18 years, and then we dated, I think, 3 or 4. Yeah,
Oh wow. So
yeah,
you said
yeah,
18 years, correct?
yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
wow.
Long time.
Yeah, I was just on a podcast yesterday with another lady um who had lost her father.
Mm-hmm.
So her mom was obviously having a rough time with it. And
Yeah.
uh, th I haven't lost my spouse. I've lost numerous other people,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't imagine, being married because we've just celebrated our 18th wedding anniversary.
Nice. Congrats.
Thank you. And I know at some point one of us will pass away. Like, I mean, obviously both of us will. Who's first, we don't know, obviously, on that point. But at some point, I potentially will be in this situation with my own, grief and all of that stuff. And so I sit and think about it and I'm like, oh my gosh, what would my life be like if I lost my significant other, the one that I thought that I would live until I'm old and gray and
Mm-hmm.
kicking him with my cane and pushing him down,
Yeah.
whatever. Whatever
Yeah.
you do as a married couple, those little quirks and things you do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and you said right after he passed, your mom got sick?
Yeah. My mom got sick, so I had about 2 years of taking care of her. But yeah, she's good now. She just celebrated her 90th birthday, so
Oh, wow,
yeah,
that is
yeah,
very
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah, yeah. She's all good, all good. So, and I'm at peace with that. But maybe she just kept me distracted. I don't know what was the purpose of it. It's like, you have no way of justifying why things happen, right? And
No,
and it's like, as you said, like I thought I'm gonna be with my husband until we are old. I always thought that I'm gonna go first, and then it's like 49, boom, and you're just so
very
shocked. And
young.
and I think you can't analyze it too much because if you do, you drive yourself crazy, first of all, and second of all, it's like you cannot really figure out what was the reason for something so horrifying.
Right.
So it's like you never get answers. You have to surrender and think, okay, maybe there was some reason. I don't see it because you don't see it when you're grieving. It's
No.
like it's just not really something. It's like, what the excuse my
Right.
language. So it's
Right.
yeah, and it's like you feel it's unfair and you go through all these stages of grieving. I read about them and my anger came. I was in San Diego and on a TV talk and it hit me there. It was like year and a almost 2 years actually after he passed, and that was the first time I had anger
Oh,
that
wow.
surfaced. And I remember standing there and they were saying, look at the camera, look at this dog, don't move, stay on this, because when I talk, I move, right? They said, don't move, stand on these 2 feet, like where they had the mark. And then I remember thinking, what the like, where are you? Where are you? Why did you leave me behind here? Why am I doing this? Like, I was getting so angry. And I remember there was this other coach, and he said, oh my God, you just shit the bed. And I'm like, I don't remember anything I was saying. Like, all I was seeing, I was ahead of my late husband, and I was getting so angry. And so it was funny because then we went out, and he said to me, go to the hotel room and write everything you're angry about. And
Yes.
so I did that, and then I started screaming, and the next day I was thinking, oh my God, my poor neighbors, they must have thought I'm murdering somebody there. But and then, I remember coming home and my son said to me, Mom, what happened to you there? You seem so different and so relaxed. And I'm like, how does a 13-year-old pick up on something? And I didn't tell him anything. So somehow I must have released that anger that I was holding in without even realizing it. And then I remember later reading, and it's like for everybody who loses anybody, like parents or some, that it's like an ultimate betrayal.
Mhm.
And because I felt so bad that he died so young, and obviously didn't want to, then I never thought about it as a betrayal. And then I'm like, yeah, that is the ultimate betrayal, because you cannot talk to them. People who divorce, it's a huge grief, but at least they can talk to the person.
Right.
The kids still have the second parent. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like, it's not the end, where this, like when somebody dies on you, it's the end. It is
Right.
the ultimate thing. So then I kept saying, yeah, to my I remember saying to my son one day, oh, your dad just left us here, he like betrayed me. And my son was like, oh no, mom, he didn't want to. And I'm like, I know. So yeah, it's and I think everybody has a very different way going through the grief. I mean, I'm sure you know that with all your clients and everything. It's a process that we all have to handle on our own
It is.
differently. It took me a long, long time, a long, long time. And I remember my girlfriend said to me about 2 years, or maybe, yeah, I don't know, a year or two. I don't know, like, the time is kind of like,
Yeah, I get
uh,
fumbled in the time too.
yeah, yeah.
So
And so she says, well, why are you still so bad? Like it's been a year or two, whatever it
mm,
was. And I'm like, you have no idea, girl. Like
right.
you don't know what you're talking about. And I said, maybe there are people that are good after a year or two, but not too many. I don't think too many. So yeah.
No, it's I don't know. I find it I still go through the ups and downs, not as much and not as bad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, just because I've learned how to navigate the emotions a little bit better, but it
Mm-hmm.
catches me off guard quite frequently now. Like
Mm-hmm.
before I could talk about her death, because we lost our 19-year-old daughter. And
Oh, okay.
and that was in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And it oh, I got angry real fast because hers was a freak vehicle accident.
Mm.
And so I
Yeah,
got
yeah,
angry extremely quickly.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, I think that's just normal for me, but but
Well, sorry to hear, but yeah, yeah. I mean, that's different circumstance too.
it
Yeah.
is. But it's like it robbed us of seeing her children, of seeing her
Mm-hmm.
marriage, of seeing,
Absolutely.
the jobs and stuff she was going to have, the career that was going to fulfill her, all of the things, the barbecues on Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
the poker parties every month. We're missing all of those things. And it just I still get angry sometimes, but I'm in a
Mm-hmm.
better place now with my anger. Um but yeah, for me, that was the hardest one. Like, I know she's gone. I know she's not coming back. I know she's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And all at the same time,
Yes.
but the anger and the unfairness and the unjustness and all of
Mm-hmm. That's
so
very, you're right. That's very hard part. And obviously no parent should survive their children. Um,
that's the hardest one right there.
yes, yes. So it's another level of grief, I believe, in those circumstances. So, and especially also when it's a freak accident, I think that another difficult part is that you don't have time to say goodbye.
No,
That's
absolutely not.
that's a huge, because then it's like on some level you feel that closure wasn't proper. right?
Right.
So that makes it even more difficult. So all these different circumstances make the grief different, way difficult on different
Yeah.
levels. And yeah, sorry to hear that, but yeah, good for you, girl, to keep
Well,
going and move
so
on.
funny story. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know how funny it is, but to me, I find it very funny. So I have a private membership, and a lady I had done a Facebook Live on coping mechanisms,
Mm-hmm.
and she made a comment on the post about she wasn't sure if this was a coping mechanism or not, but she still gets stuck in the coulda, shoulda, woulda stage, if she'd have done something differently. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing my due diligence and I'm looking it up. I'm like, I don't think this is a coping mechanism, but let me just make sure before I spout off my mouth that I'm completely wrong. So I'm researching all this stuff, and I come across this website, fantastic website, and it talked about the shoulda, coulda, woulda stage, and you're beating yourself up and you're angry and you're like all these things because like, you could have done more, you should have done more, all these
Mm-hmm.
things.
Oh yeah.
And they said, oh no, that's not a coping mechanism. That's PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, PTSD? I didn't realize I had PTSD like
Mm-hmm.
when we lost
Mm-hmm.
our daughter.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there, and of course, now I'm just consuming anything I can. And the funny part for me is my husband was in the military, and I was the family readiness leader for like 10 years. So I have a lot of experience with PTSD training,
Mm-hmm.
but I had only grouped it with military. I didn't push it
Oh, that's
anywhere
interesting.
outside of that. And so
Yeah.
I was like, this is profound, even though
Mm-hmm.
I had PTSD at the time and I was working through it,
Mm-hmm.
the proper ways, or I guess the ways for me anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was quite interesting, like how you don't even realize where you're at
Mm-hmm.
until a lot of times you're through it.
Yes. And it's interesting that you mentioned PTSD because PTSD and panic attacks 16 years ago was the reason why I created the technique Well Managed Mind, because I had PTSD. I was skiing with my son, um, and he went over, there was like the rope of a closed thing,
Oh,
and he went over the cliff. He was like 7, right under it. And I thought we will not even find his body because it's just going to be like, it was just down, down. And then there was a closed run about 100 meters below. So that stopped his body from falling.
okay.
And so I just obviously freaked out because I was watching him. I'm like, what is he doing? And so by the time I got to him and then the help came, like he was actually fine.
Yeah.
But about a week later, I thought I have a heart attack. And I'm like, what the hell? So like I couldn't feel anything, like everything was like numb. My face was numb. I just called 911. They came, and it turned out to be a panic attack.
Hmm.
I never heard of panic attacks. Well, I heard of them, just never experienced one, didn't
Right.
know what it is. And and then it got so severe because same thing. They said, well, you had PTSD watching him going over, and now the panic attacks are triggering. I couldn't even sit up. Like I was basically able to lie down, but the second I tried to sit up or go to the washroom, it triggered the panic attack. So that's how I was like lying in my bed and say, what the hell? Like, I took psychology courses at university. I studied Chinese medicine. I need to help myself here. And that's how I started thinking, retracking what subconscious reprogramming is about is basically I thought, okay, so I have a trauma in my subconscious and it's triggering me. 95% we get triggered based on our memories, right? So that's something that caused trauma. Trauma caused that. So how can I get it out and put something new in there? And
Right.
I was just thinking that concept, and then I talked to a doctor of Chinese medicine that I used to go to, and I couldn't go, so we had a chat about it, and then I started researching the acupressure points that would respond to connecting conscious and subconscious, and then I was like adding the self-talk to it, and anyway, long story short, the well-managed mind system was created. And I started healing myself. And I basically at the beginning thought that I have to be very specific. So that I have to kind of talk about okay, this is when I saw him going over the cliff. I have to clear it. Then I want to get up and be able to sit for 5 minutes. So, and I cannot do it because blah, blah, blah. So I was looking for all the reasons. Then I drank red wine and then it triggered it. Then it's like around my hormonal cycle, it triggered it. So I'm like, okay, so I'm clearing all the reasons. And then about maybe 5 months later, and at that point I started going out and the technique was working and I was testing it on my friends and it was all working. Then it started waking me up in the middle of the night. And I'm like, what the hell? Like 3 o'clock in the morning, my like I was all cramped
Wow.
up. My head was numb. And so I was talking to my girlfriend who was just becoming a coach at that time. And then I had a car accident when I was a teenager. I flew out of the car when we were going to the mountains. We got hit by a bus and
Wow.
woke up on the road because there were no car seats and
Yeah.
I was sleeping in the back, so I just got catapulted out. And she said, well, what if it's something when you actually were not conscious, when you were subconscious, unconscious, and then this recording is waking you up now? And I'm like, okay, but then I don't know what happened, so how can I reprogram it? So then we thought, well, why don't we go after something general and say, okay, if there is anything in my subconscious that have basically caused me triggering these panic attacks at 3 o'clock in the morning, I want to delete it. Because the technique, it's like you give the problem, you delete it, and you rebuild it.
Yeah.
And I have never had them since. So then I realized that you don't have to give your subconscious specific instructions. It's so smart because we all
Right.
created it, right? So
Right.
it's just you say, I want to get rid of this, and it knows exactly what to release. So that
Hmm.
was a big breakthrough. But yeah, but PTSD was how I created this, how I started this, and also eliminated the should have, could have, because we all have this. Everybody who goes through grief, we feel guilty no matter what we did. We think we could have done more. So
Or somehow changed the outcome.
absolutely.
Like we are
Yeah,
Superman and or
yeah,
brain powers or whatever it is,
yeah,
But we
yeah,
believe it, we think it. And
yeah,
if I would have done this, if I would have just listened harder, if I would have just done that,
yeah,
or whatever the story is, it's
yeah.
but the sad
Probably
reality
guilt, right?
it is guilt.
Yeah,
Uh,
I would think so.
because we feel we weren't there enough, or we weren't
Yes,
listening enough, or we
yeah,
weren't a good enough mother or wife
yeah,
or parent or sister or whatever it is.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, because I
We,
I think that grief, I talk about this a lot, that grief is obviously it's specific to the person,
mm-hmm,
also specific to the relationship that you had with the person, whether it was good or whether it was bad, as to how how that grief is going to impact you
that's true.
and how long it'll take you to like move through some of the stages.
Mm-hmm,
Because if
mm-hmm,
you have a lot of guilt, um, and they've passed away, or like maybe you were on the rocks with them, or whatever it is, and it was
mm-hmm,
just a bad relationship, and you never got to tell your side of the story. You
mm-hmm,
never got to confront them. You never got to say anything. Like that plays a lot.
mm-hmm.
Plays a
Oh, for sure, for sure. I remember when I was little, and you probably have the same experience watching movies where the family members didn't talk,
yeah,
and then one of them passed, right? And I remember as a kid thinking, why didn't you make up? Like, look, now this person is being buried. You will never be able to fix it. And it's
right.
just like I was always like surprised, like, why? Why is this in a movie? Why didn't they fix this?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's but yeah, we are stubborn, ego, some of us,
yes,
driven humans. And it's unfortunate when stuff like that happens. It's hard. Yeah, yeah.
I agree with that. And so you published this book on how to change your mind, your subconscious.
Yes, so the book was I was presenting at some conference, and I noticed a week prior that I supposed to have a book. that I didn't have.
You sound like me. I'm like, oh, let me just read what I should be doing.
Yeah. And then I'm like, oh, I have 5 days to write it. And then and so I found on, I think it was Upwork, one of those, like an editor, and I'm like, look, I have to record it every day, a chapter, 5 chapters, that's all I can do. And then you have to edit it. And she said, okay. And so we did it. And then when I got there, it was like, I didn't even know how to put it on Kindle at that point. Somebody helped me that was there. And then the next day, I guess that's how the algorithm works. About 200 people bought it. And then I was like, it became a bestseller before Edgar Tolle. And I'm like, oh my God. And I didn't even have a proper cover for it. And I haven't read it since because I thought it was so bad. But anyway, I do remember it was structured kind of like the speech that I was delivering, explaining this how subconscious reprogramming works, and a very short story to make it very, very short is basically we have experiences right now. In 2 hours, science claims it goes to your subconscious. And then from subconscious, 95% every day you are driven by all these memories that are there. And over the last 16 years I've been teaching, I did notice that it's the negative triggers, it's the negative emotions that trigger us most. And that's why people get stuck in the loop. And grief is just one of the biggest ones, right? Because it's like, or PTSD or even panic attacks. It's just looped. And I had a lot of people at the beginning that were coming to me from therapy. They said, I go to therapy and then I get even more angry at my husband or at myself. I go home and I'm even more mad. Because that step that subconscious reprogramming has, where you delete it and through visualization or through other tools, you basically get rid of it, then your subconscious understands it's gone, and then you put a new file in. And the way our brain works is that in 2 hours, it becomes a new little pattern or whatever you want to call it, memory. And then more you put in there, it starts triggering you in a positive way. That's why they say that it's such a fast, they say it's 10 times faster than any hypnotherapy or any therapy. I think it's even more than that, but then it wouldn't sound realistic. So it's like you take it out and then you do new one. Like I worked with brokers that had panic attacks and like it never came back. People before they go to surgery, they call me and they say, I'm so scared, like need to get rid of it. And they say, I can't even access the fear. So the reason I'm mentioning this is because it takes out that negative emotion of it. Like when we were talking about anger, fear, guilt, like any of those. And once that's gone, the subconscious doesn't trigger you as much because then it becomes neutral, right? So it's like one of those memories that are in the background and they don't really need to trigger you because it's not alert, it's not fight or flight, it's not danger. So, another one that works really well with subconscious reprogramming, I found out over the years, are allergies, because what allergies are, they are when the brain starts thinking you're in danger and it starts sending symptoms to your body. So when you stop the brain believing that you're in danger, you don't get the body reaction. So anything that's like, that's negatively, or chronic pain, same thing. If it's chronic, like, people can never touch a new pain because that's dangerous and we don't know. But if it's a chronic one that's from an old injury or accident, same thing. Your brain finds the way to bring it back up based on some similarities or circumstances of the time of the year, even the weather, or maybe you carrying groceries, because when I had that car accident, I broke a couple of vertebrae. So when I would carry something heavy, I immediately would get the pain. So then you can instruct your brain, I'm going to carry very heavy stuff, don't send the pain. And it doesn't. It's really weird. Yeah. So it's not just grief or PTSD. It works on a stuff that is basically anything that's repetitive, sitting in your subconscious and has negative emotion or repetitive pain. That's how subconscious reprogramming works. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is like, I'm like, psh,
Yeah.
so
It's
many
the
ways. So is this book still in print?
Yeah, it's on Amazon, and it's yeah, it's I think I have it on my website also, free for people who sign up to the email list. I think.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, we'll have to get that. I'll
Emotional
have to make
enlightenment. Yeah.
sure that I put your
Yeah.
website in here so that
Yeah.
and there'll be a link down below to her website. So you'll be
Yeah.
able to
Yeah.
go and find the book on there,
Yeah.
and download it and solve all of your problems.
Yeah, it's
Or at least
no
not all of them, but
all the let's say negative emotional problems.
right. You'll be nothing but a bundle of sunshine and
Yeah, yeah.
I think of the movie Up, the gentleman with all the
Oh
balloons.
yeah. Yeah, that was a good movie.
My gosh, I have had such a blast chatting with you today. It
Same
has
here,
been
Faith.
so eye-opening listening to you and the book and the subconscious reprogramming and all the things. Like I'm just my mind is blown. I'm like, oh my
Well,
gosh,
thank
I'm
you.
so
I
excited.
and yeah, and I am actually blown away with you and your daughter, how well you're doing and how you're moving forward. I'm very proud of you. That's really cool.
Oh, thank you. It's taken a lot of work, a lot of
I know.
introspection, and a lot
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
reprogramming that I guess I don't know that I'm reprogramming, but I'm doing it
I'm
somehow.
sure you are. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
used to be, I look back at like when I was a teenager, I was so angry with the world.
Mm.
Just because, I mean, I had a great childhood, but we moved around a lot. And
Hmm.
so I got angry because I was always the new kid in the class. I hated it, absolutely
Yeah.
hated it.
Yeah.
And so I had adopted this mindset, like if anything's going to break, it's going to be with me. If, nothing's going to ever plan out right. So I'm never going to plan. I'm, just one of those people, just a negative Nelly,
Hmm.
bad. And then, it was probably, oh gosh, it was after my father died in 2005,
Hmm.
probably 2006 or seven, I started unconsciously like changing my thought process, listening to more podcasts, doing more things. Um, it was actually when I married my husband in 2005, I joined his family readiness group in 2006.
Hmm.
At his bequest, he wanted me to join, be a part of this military life with him. And so I joined and they made me the family readiness leader. As the family readiness leader, I have to speak in front of soldiers.
Hmm.
And there was
Wow.
169 soldiers there at
Oh
that.
my goodness.
And so I would literally read and it would be my face would be covered and I'd be like, and I would talk so low. And I mean, if you've ever been around a military unit or group and someone is speaking and there's a couple soldiers in the back chatting, what do? Attention! And everyone's silent. Hear a pin drop. And I'm like, so nervous. My face is beet red. And so I started a journey to be a better speaker. I wanted to be able to
Hmm.
the soldiers to be able to talk to them without all of these issues going on.
Yeah.
So I started on that journey and that has been extremely beneficial for me.
Good
Um,
for you. And look at you now.
yeah, look at me now. I'm talking to everyone all willy-nilly.
Yeah, no, it's good for you. I mean, that's a tough one, public speaking. It's it's a lot of people cannot do it. So kudos, girl. Good
Yeah.
for you.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
trying. I'm
yeah, no,
working on it. We're working
yeah,
on it. So.
no.
But we nailed that one. The soldiers, it was pretty easy after that. Well, I mean, the first year and a half was probably really rough.
Hmm.
But after that, it got easier and better and, you know, not as scary.
Yeah.
Die. I'll put it that way. I didn't die.
And now you love it.
Now I do love it. It's kind of
Yeah,
crazy.
isn't that funny?
It is. I think I adopted the mindset about that time, like the obstacle is the way, go through, not around, over, underneath, anything. Just face it head on, and then it's not as bad. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
I do the same
yeah,
thing with my grief. I'm like, okay, let's hit it head on. Like, what is it? What are we facing? What are we talking about? Let's do
yeah.
these. And so that book though, I'm like, I need to read that.
But it's a good way that you describe it being, because I think a lot of people are going around like they don't want to feel the pain and they don't
I
even
do.
realize the pain, like that it's a good thing to go through it, right? Because if there is one thing that I would like that I did learn through that process, and I would say to everybody, if you have a bad day, like don't fight it.
Right.
Like it's like what you're saying, just either go through it or just wait or do like whatever, just don't fight it. Don't fight it
Yeah,
because that makes it longer.
it does. I think it halts your progress
Mm-hmm,
substantially because
for
you're
sure.
avoiding it. And when you start avoiding things, that's a lot of times when anxiety pops in
Mm-hmm,
because you're
mm-hmm,
avoiding making a decision. You're avoiding
mm-hmm,
doing something that you know your body knows it needs to go through.
mm-hmm.
And you're just you're causing yourself more harm than good. So
Yes. And you know what's interesting also about it is that I realized over the years how differently men and women deal with grief.
yes.
Um, I joined after Paul passed. I joined this widow group on Facebook, and it had about 2,500 women, I think. And I kind of said, okay, they're gonna lift me up and everything. But it was like in that book John Gray wrote, Men Are from Mars and Women Are from Venus. That group was being used, and there was nothing wrong with it, but for me, it just was so difficult. They basically just talked how they felt that day, but there was no solution for me. And
Yeah.
so what started happening to me, I started feeling bad for them. And then it made me feel even worse. And I'm like, so what kind of support is this for me? This is not working for me. So, and then after a while I thought, I wonder if anybody wants even like wants help, like help
Yeah.
themselves here, right? But I think they did. It's just like they had that initial process of just talk about it, but there were people that for 10 years they didn't clear the clothes of the husband, right, from the
Right.
closet. So then, and it's fine, but that, like, I thought, okay, that seems a little bit long. So eventually I left the group because I felt more emotional reading these stories that women were
Yeah.
sharing. But I think what you were saying and like what you and I are doing is to solving it and to moving forward. And maybe solving is not the right word, but to basically
Right.
go through it and have a solution eventually.
Right.
It's probably never going to go away, but now when I think of my husband, I don't cry. I don't think of the tough times we had when he got sick. I think of the nice things.
Yes.
So to me, that's a big progress.
It is. It is. I mean, I agree 100%. I am a
Mhm,
problem solver by nature.
mhm, mhm,
And like you bring me an issue, something that's, there's a problem. My
mhm,
first instinct is, okay, how can we solve it? Let's think, 900 ways from Sunday, how we can solve this. And then you can choose the
mhm,
one that's best for you to move forward with. Boom, done.
mhm,
And
mhm,
so that was the hardest for me after losing my daughter was
mhm.
I couldn't solve this problem. And
Yes,
not in the traditional sense of solving.
yes, yes, I
Uh,
agree.
I had to figure out my mindset because grief is a mindset issue.
Mhm, mhm,
It's not
for sure.
necessarily a physical issue. It's not anything of those. It's a mindset issue 150 million%.
Mhm, mhm,
So if your mindset is not strong or it's constantly in the negative or all these things, then it's going to be a very rough time with
mhm,
grief. And you absolutely will need to reprogram it to
mhm,
to not have all these emotions, all these feelings all the time and to not be stuck
mhm,
in the shoulda, coulda, wouldas or in the anger stage or in the
mhm.
what I call the nothingness stage, which is where you
Yeah,
absolutely feel nothing. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're just
Yes.
existing at that point, which is not
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that you, because you are a problem solver, um, it's good because I think that a lot of women are not. And so I think it's almost like it's your journey to teach these women that it has to get solved. And it doesn't mean that solving is going to be like ABC, but eventually letting go will give you a piece of the mindset you're talking about. You're going to start feeling better versus like looking at the clothes in the closet,
Right.
for so many years. So that's where are you coming from, girl? You're a problem solver for women that are on the planet Venus, as John Gray would say, and
Right.
they just want to chat. So there's Faith coming with
Right.
solutions, girls.
I got papers. We got checklists to do.
Yes, yes. We're gonna open a bottle of wine and we're gonna figure this out.
We are. We are. And I do that with like all the things. So I just published like a journal. It's like a
Hmm.
30-day journal. Actually, I
Hmm.
think it's a 90-day journal. But it has in there where you're writing yourself a love note every day because I'm like,
Hmm.
this will help you solve your problems. Like writing
Hmm.
a love note to
Hmm.
yourself so you can,
Hmm.
without knowing it, it's like reprogramming your mind to think good thoughts about yourself instead of bad.
Yeah.
And
Yes. Yes. There was this somebody taught me a while ago, and I give it sometimes to my clients and they love it. It's they call it spell. And so you make like a oval, kind of in your journal. You make an oval and you write whatever you want that day to happen. And it has to be positive. There cannot be any judgment,
right,
criticism. And then it has to be in present tense, like it
yes.
just happened. And people say it works like a charm. I tried it a few times and I quite like it.
I think so. I've seen them also like I think to magnify it is if you look in the mirror at yourself,
Hmm.
reflecting it back to yourself, and you're saying it in this positive thoughts and intentions, as well as with confidence.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes, yes,
Everything vibes on a plane of truth. If you're not on a plane of
yeah,
truth, then nothing is vibing.
yes, that's true. And it's interesting because sometimes when I look in the mirror, I don't even want to talk to myself. And so then I go and I do that, like, and I write down, like, it doesn't have to be even the oval,
Right.
but I think women in generally like release, not all of them, but release when they write. I think also people who have busy mind, then when they
Yes,
write, it slows it down. Like for me, I have like it's like I have like two of them. And so when I start writing, it slows my brain down and then I can kind of like stay with what I wanted to do. Versus if I say today I'm grateful for this, suddenly my thought is just gonna jump in, what am I gonna make for dinner? And I'm so distracted that's why I also created the technique, because for me a lot of mindfulness meditations, when I started doing them, my mind was going to all sorts of different directions, right? So I think for women or even men who have busy minds, writing is really cool when you
it
talking about
is.
the journal. Yeah, it's just kind of slows
Especially, I
the.
think, like if you have a question, so that
Hmm.
way it's focused specifically on that one question.
Yeah,
I'm
I
also a
like
big
it.
proponent of getting out into nature, and
Yeah, yeah.
touching the plants and thanking them for all the beauty they possess
Hmm.
and they give us and all those things. I don't know. That's on a whole nother topic.
Well, so where do we get your 90-day journal, girl?
It's on Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Under
I
your name?
do. It is under Faith Sage. I actually have
Okay.
I just created my author page on there. So I've got a few
Oh,
things. I've got some coloring books on there, or a coloring book at this moment. I got
okay.
another book got to go on there.
All right. I'll
I've got
check it
that
out.
log book. It's actually it's called a log book, a 90-day workout journal.
Okay.
But I
Logbook.
messed
Okay.
up the title on it on Amazon. And if you know anything about Amazon KDP,
Oh, yeah.
They forever haunt you with the mistakes that you make because you can't change it unless I like do a whole other upload and do. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
want to.
yeah. Yeah, I never done it, but I always had people to help me, but I because I have no patience for that, but I do remember a couple of stuff even when we were changing the cover of the book and everything. So, but
Yeah,
I'll check it out. I'm sure it's lovely. I'm sure it's lovely.
the cover is fine. It's just my
Yeah,
description of it on KDP is not good.
that's okay. That's not important. The journal is
Not
important.
important. Yeah. So
So, all
thank
right.
you again, Dana. I appreciated this chat so
Yes, same
more
here.
than you even know. Like it
Sounds
was
good.
so good.
Yes.
Is there anything
Thank you.
last things you want to say to the guests that are listening in? Anything that could help them through their grief at this moment if they're stuck or thinking of how do I move forward from where I'm at?
I My biggest thing always was don't be hard on yourself. If you don't fight it, um, if it takes you down, because it goes like this, you think, oh, I'm feeling better, and so if you don't fight these swings, up and downs, you eventually gonna notice that these big waves are getting smaller and smaller. So they're gonna be shorter, they're gonna be less intense, and they're gonna be there for a long time. But the fact that you don't fight it, you don't give yourself a hard time, you don't feel guilty, you don't have self-talk that is negative. Um, I mean, everybody has different circumstance, so not everybody can say this person would not want me to grieve because some people have unfortunately circumstance that wouldn't allow them. But I think if you can find in yourself and say, I'm a good person and I'm not gonna let this like lead my life to the future. Today is a shitty day, so it's okay. Tomorrow's gonna be better, right? And eventually, as I said, the waves get smaller and shorter. And yeah, we all come out of it if we try.
Right. Yes. If we give it a good ass go, we can come.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Well,
yeah, support for sure. Support as well, face, because I think we all need support. That's another thing that I think I thought as a counselor that um, I can do this myself because I have a technique. And so it took me a while to realize that. And then I got on that group that didn't really help me because I kind of felt more sadness. But eventually, I started talking to a couple people that were in the same situations, and that helped. So yeah, support is a big thing. Um,
I agree.
Therapy, whatever. Everybody has to find what works for them.
Right. Yeah, there's no
So
one size fits all.
so just keep looking.
Keep looking, keep
Keep
going,
looking and
and
keep
keep
going.
doing.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
My
Yeah.
favorite.
And maybe like think about it this way, we're all wonderful in a different way.
Yep.
So yeah, right. Like a lot of things we worry about might never happen. So a lot of stuff that we feel guilty about is not real. It's just our mind created that based on how we feel or how we thought we should have done more, because everybody who is dealing with grief thinks that they should have done more, like everybody.
Right.
Probably every parent as well. Oh yeah, I should have done this, I should have done it. But we can't live like that. I always say we fix as parents what our parents screwed up, but by fixing what they screwed up, we screwed up other things. So
Right.
our kids are gonna fix what we screwed up, and then they are gonna fix some, like they're gonna screw up something else. So it's cycle of life.
It is the
That's
cycle of life. It's like
it is
I tell everyone, I'm like, we don't get out of childhood without trauma. Like you're
yeah,
gonna have it, and it's your job to fix
absolutely.
it.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I
So
love that. That's very good. Yeah, yeah. It's our job to live well. That's why we're here. And whatever takes us down, we get up and go again.
yes.
And it's not fighting either, I don't think. It's just, I don't know what it is. What is it? Learning from mistakes or like what life gives you. Say, screw this. I'm gonna come through this good. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Why is life so difficult? Sometimes.
It wasn't meant to be easy, I don't think.
No, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I
That's
think
like,
it's easier with your mindset. If you have a good mindset versus a bad mindset, then
yes.
you think of it as lessons instead of losses.
Hmm. Yes, and I think like if people get stuck in those negative loops, so that if you think about it, that 95% we function from subconscious memories, I mean, that's huge. There is not much, so they have to go. They have to be released. So forgive yourself, find a technique, find therapy, find anything that you can release the past. Because once you do that, you can just start feeling lighter and you can move forward and build something new, something different, or whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah,
So
that's so good. I love that.
yeah,
So
yeah. So.
now I'm gonna really close this podcast
Yes, girl,
out.
because we are talking too much
We can
here.
we could talk for I think a month
Yeah,
of Sundays,
yeah,
given the
yeah,
opportunity. Um,
yeah.
but real quick, where can they find you online? What's your website or wherever you
Okay, yeah, the website is called Emotional Enlightenment. So it's not enlightenment, it's enlightenment.com. And there is a website also wellmanagedmind.com. So
Okay,
there
perfect.
too. Yeah, the emotional enlightenment is more for life coaching. And then I have a couple courses. I have courses on Udemy and Audible and stuff like that. So on both websites, they're all there to be looked at.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you so much again for being on here and
Yes,
sharing
thank
all
you.
of your knowledge.
Thank you for
And
having me. It was
you're
lovely.
welcome. You're welcome. And I hope you guys got a little bit of something, something out of this podcast episode. And go make sure you go follow her because I'm sure her posts are amazing. Her guidance is amazing. So make sure you go follow her on all of her social media platforms, get on her website list or her email list. Get her book. I'm heading there as soon as we're done. I can guarantee you that much. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Sounds good. Okay, bye, Faith. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this special episode of Release. All the links plus a few extras are posted in the show notes below. And if you think someone you know could benefit by listening to this episode, please share it with them. And as always, keep going, keep being, keep doing. You are amazing.